All right, so I think I'm alive. Well, I'm alive, but I'm also live. So welcome everybody. So good to see you, Paula, Lisa, Anonymous, Anna, Frequency, Lisa. Yeah, like Lisa says, things are really heating up on our planet. So pregnant with possibility. I know there's a lot of major solar flares happening, and we just had this super moon, full moon. But more than that, there's other galactic and planetary cycles synchronizing right now, and I think politically things are also heating up. So the heating up is part of the breakthrough. I mean, this is the timing for it, and we've gone through this many times in the past and many times again in the future. So on a soul level, we know how to navigate these times. So welcome to this earth, not just to this Saturday morning meditation, because we're all here for a purpose. We're all here with a mission, and that's to support Gaia and the collective human consciousness in this awakening. So, hey Lorna, Northumberland, UK, and Linda from Italy right now, I think, right? All right, so I thought what I would... Hey, Karen. Guten Tag. So what I thought we could start with this morning, and this always changes as, you know, as the flow emerges, and anything you want to contribute at any time, we'll include that. So Martina, Anna, RD, great. So the theme I was looking at was frequency and the sound current. The sound current has been a practice used by the Himalayan yogis for centuries. It's part of the Kriya Yoga tradition. And it's one of the major practices in the Nath tradition, and also in the Sufi tradition, in the Kashmiri Shaivite tradition. And what this is about is listening to the sound of creation that you can pick up within your brain and nervous system, and learn to navigate that. So sometimes you start hearing it towards the right side or the left side or the center. Eventually, as you pay attention, it becomes a tone, a very clear tone that pervades the entire body. And this tone is the sound of the soul as it permeates the physical, emotional, etheric, mental bodies. It penetrates the nervous system. It creates a circuitry, a network of light through which the soul can travel as it begins to embody itself within the lower bodies. And so much of our journey right now is about embodiment. And so the sound current can be a very useful practice in making this happen. I'm not talking about mantras. Mantras is a different thing. There's all kinds of mantras for all kinds of purposes, and those seed sounds have powerful effects as well. But this is listening in silence to a very subtle current of sound moving through the brain. So it's very similar to if you're walking under a power line, a strong, HEV power line, and you're hearing the hum of the electricity, the crackle and the hum of electricity as it travels through this power line. So just the same as the soul, which is a vibrational frequency, travels through the nervous system and particularly within the structures of the brain. So we talk about the Kundalini channels, we talk about the two hemispheres, the left and the right hemispheres, the amygdala, the frontal lobes, um, and each of them has specific organs and functions. And they link together to create a unified container through which the soul can manifest itself, the perceptive as well as the transmittive aspects of this. So the sound current is like a identification key. And you'll find that as you learn to work with various entities, spirit entities, they come in with a different signature, a tonal signature. So higher vibrational beings have a very clear, refined tone that's like a signature you can identify. So if you're working with, say, an extraterrestrial being or archangel or ascended master or a nature spirit or an aspect of your own soul that's higher dimensional, they each come with a specific tone, and you can learn to differentiate between them. And the higher up vibrationally you start to travel, the more refined the tone becomes. So it may start off, so just put your hands on your ears. You hear this tone, which is like the waves along the seashore, crashing upon the shore. Then you start hearing the sound of cicadas or a bell or a gong. Eventually it gets purer and um, more subtle. So just start with what you have. Don't try and change it. So just listen. So it may help initially to listen in silence if you can find it. And eventually you find that it doesn't matter, even in the middle of street sounds and um, city sounds, it's there. Yeah, Lisa says, when my guides change, the tone can change. Yes. Um, Autonomous says, is this the frequency, what I hear when I firmly close my eyes, like a humming sound? Yes. Yeah, when you close your eyes or your ears, any of the senses, then it's like this is the sound of silence. I think the Beatles were very. I think you might know that they spent a lot of time at the Maharishi Ashram in Rishikesh in meditation and learning how to access um, higher frequencies. And this comes through in many of their songs. I was at the ashram of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, the TM master that they spent time with in Rishikesh a couple times. And right now it's all falling apart. There's nobody there except for caretakers. But there's a legacy, and that legacy is there in our folk music, it's there in our collective consciousness. The sound of silence. Oh, Lorna. Oh, okay. There's a question from Lorna. Hi, Kiara. What happened to the Above Duality Weekly? So many of you may have tried to go there last week for the Age of Pandora and couldn't. And what's happened is that YouTube has imposed a censorship ban for 2 weeks. So this was the second time. The first time was 1 week. This time was 2 weeks. The third time, if there's another violation, it will be permanent. So David has another channel, a backup channel, called Above and Beyond Duality. So this last interview with Jacqueline was, what's her last name? Jacqueline Flagstaff. Not Flagstaff, that's the town. Oh gosh, sometimes I have these hiccups in the brain. So that's archived there, and this next one on Tuesday will also be on the Above and Beyond Duality YouTube channel. So the next one will be with a longtime friend, Mitchell Rabin, who also is a host for a talk show and television show. And then after that, hopefully, we'll be back to Above Duality. And we're also looking at the possibility of getting a separate platform that's not censorable, where you can be free to talk about anything, anytime. All right. Oh, Maria, Leela, welcome. Connie. So just a little bit about frequency. I know Nikola Tesla said something about this. He said, if you understand vibration, frequency, and energy, you understand the entire universe. Okay, so does the pineapple gland, the pineal gland, create this frequency? I think it can be focused in the pineal gland, but it's more than that. The frequency is created, it's a general tone that moves through the whole brain, it moves through the whole body. It may be initiated in certain places, like the pineal or the amygdala, where there's nodes where the soul can actually enter. But that would be a good subject to research. In fact, I do think that the more we clear and purify the pineal gland, the more sensitive we become to the stone, and the more receptive to various frequencies that want to come through. And as Lisa said, all of our guides come in with a signature frequency. And so we can learn to identify them, we can learn to call them through that. It's like, ringing a bell and hearing the response both ways. I started hearing tones before I became clairaudient, yeah. In fact, if some of you are curious about learning to work with these subtle senses, whether it's clairaudience, clairsentience, clairvoyance, the higher levels of the mind, intuition, also the cellular structures of the body. There's a wisdom there which can all be accessed through the sound current. So as you work with the sound current, it will naturally open up these subtle senses, and particularly intuition. It's like, how do you discern? How do you discern in a world where there's so much madness, where you hear so many variants of the same story? Some of them outright lies, some of them half-truths, and some of them factual. And even so, there's different levels of fact and truth. So third dimensional truths may be different from fourth, fifth, sixth dimensional truths. So listening for truth is something we learn to do as we listen to the sound current. It's the soul speaking through the sound current that leads us into truth, that leads us into discernment of the truth. And whatever truth may be, sometimes it's relative, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's personal, sometimes it's bigger than that. So it takes us on our path. It allows us to step by step move forward on whatever your personal journey is, in resonance with our planetary and cosmic journey. Another thing you can do, and this is something I've been doing, is I often get woken up early mornings, like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, And I just I'm sitting on my computer at the keyboard and just listening to that sound current. And then from that comes maybe one word. Then that leads to something else. And then pretty soon it's a flow. And as long as I maintain that connection with the sound current, it opens up a doorway to the intuitive level of the mind and higher levels of the mind. And from there, whatever needs to come through comes through effortlessly and powerfully. And it's a process that you can train yourself in. If you're a writer, if you're a painter, if you're an artist of any kind, or if you're simply sitting in nature and listening, or if you're an inventor or a scientist and tuning in, or if you're just simply meditating and listening to the voice of the universe. So the sound current can be very fundamental. Leela, hey, do you know about the Healy frequency technology? Yeah, so, Leela has been introducing me to the beamer, and this is another technology. It's a much smaller. In fact, I can show you. This here is the Healy. It's a frequency device. Um, you connect that up to the program. It's a, what's it called? An app on your phone, which, like the Rife machine, has many different frequencies tied into it for different aspects of health and wellness. So spiritual, emotional, and physical levels. And so you can tune into different vibrational frequencies and just allow your body to select what it needs. So it's yeah, if anyone is interested, I think Leela is a distributor for both the Healy and the Beamer, as I'm also a distributor for Healy. So if it's something that you're drawn to, just look it up. So Leela says, I add this to my work. I'm able to do chakra analysis, send homeopathy frequencies through this morphogenetic field. And this morphogenetic field is a collective field that all of us are linked into, consciously or unconsciously. When it's unconscious, it's called programming or conditioning. And when it's unconscious, we're generally tuned in to a lower vibrational frequency field. So that's how thought forms get transmitted. Thought forms of fear, thought forms of separation, doubt, uneasiness, oppression, victimization, war, violence, greed. And what's happening to reverse this now is higher vibrational thought forms that we are accessing through our higher consciousness as we open to that. It comes through our bodies, it creates a vibrational field of resonance, it ripples out through the collective. And it's happening big time right now. So we can support this, listening to the sound current, working with these vibrational frequencies. There's also other units. Francesca and her husband Igor have been working with the QXCI and other frequency devices. There's what's it called, the SE5 system. My friend Mitchell has been working with something else called the Life system. Jamie's been working with Tibetan bowls, tuning forks. These are all available to all of us. Eventually, we find we don't need the external tools and technologies. Once you learn to listen to that sound current enough and to master that and to be able to transmit that, you can tune into very, very high frequencies, very refined and specific frequencies. For instance, I remember when I was in Peru working with plant medicines 10 years ago, and I came back and I was visiting a friend in England, and we went out to this beautiful stream, and just sitting at the bank of the stream, and we were talking about plant medicines, and then suddenly I felt something buzzing here at the crown or the upper crown, just like the Incas talked about this window. And so I opened that window and invited the spirit of ayahuasca to come through. And as that happened, I could feel the same um, activation of DMT in the pineal, which then led to opening up doorways, which were very similar to what ayahuasca produces. Because ayahuasca is more than a plant medicine. All these plant medicines are spirit entities that work with specific morphogenetic fields. And as in the interaction between human and plant kingdoms, which the shamans knew how to do, these fields became more and more refined. They developed more of a purpose, and we can add our own purpose, our own mission statement to these fields, which means we can affect collective consciousness and planetary consciousness through these fields. And it doesn't have to be through plant medicines. We can simply open up that window, uh, connect with that sound current, enter into the vibrational field of the planet, or the human collective, and then simply put out our thoughts, our intentions, our feelings, our presence, as a higher vibrational field to overcome the conditioning and the programming that we are unconsciously bound to. Everything that we're experiencing now with this COVIDian crisis is conditioning and programming. It's all deliberate, a lot of it, a lot of the incitement of fear, a lot of the mind control. This was developed back in Montauk, MK Ultra, the Project Paperclip. This has been going on for decades. It's not new. What's new is how the media is now joining hands with these technologies to promote and to create this field of insanity. And we can overcome that. So we've talked about the David Hawkins model of consciousness, or the scale of consciousness going up from 0 to 1000, and 0 being guilt, shame, and fear, and 1000 being ecstasy, bliss, and oneness. And as we go up the scale, what tends to happen is we can overcome and outweigh hundreds or millions of people who are vibrating at a lower end on the scale. So this is our contribution. As we simply shift our vibrational frequency, we enter into a state of presence, which is tremendously healing and is able to overcome a lot of the programming and the shame, the guilt, the fear that we've been experiencing as a collective, all the trauma of thousands of years of human history. And that's why we're here. So rather than going into our own spiral of despair and hopelessness, listen for that sound current. Allow it to guide you. Open up to the vibrational frequency as it permeates through every cell of the body, transmuting hucha, opening up new possibilities, opening up doorways between the upper world and the lower world, so that we're living in this state of oneness and vibrating that, rippling that out through the collective every moment of the day. The more I think I know, the less I understand. Yeah. There's a big difference between intellect and intelligence. Intellect comes from the rational level of the mind, where intelligence permeates levels of the mind far beyond that in the upper worlds as well as the lower worlds. Lisa says, Leela, I love the tuning forks. They can help before meditation. Leela says, love the coherence program from Healy, connects people worldwide. Lisa says, beautiful, yes, we can speak to trees. We can always speak to trees and deers. And Leela says, just call them. She's living in this beautiful valley in the heart of Germany, surrounded by deer and nature. And so a mother with a baby came out of the woods looking at me. Beautiful. So the Healy is an example of a vibrational device that can be aligned with human consciousness, works with human consciousness, but is not a controlling frequency. It's like, it's a supportive frequency. What artificial intelligence is about is different. It's a controlling frequency used without permission, against our sovereign will, for the purposes of mind control. I don't need to go into more of that. Paula is saying, I heard that according to the Aztec calendar, we entered the sixth sun this past week. Wow. Interesting. Very interesting. I'd be curious to know more about that. Paula, if you want to say more in the chat, please do so. Or write me or send me a link. Frequency Girl says, received an earth current shock while sitting on the ground near water. This could all be part of this higher vibrational energy entering into the etheric field of the earth. I think some of you might remember, what's his name? I got a brain shock. What's his name? Oh, this Bulgarian mystic. Oh, what's his name? If someone of you knows who I'm talking about, please say so. But he talked about this cosmic electricity, and he died shortly after World War II. But he made this final prophecy, Peter Donov. This final prophecy before he died was about this cosmic electricity that would start entering into the earth. So I imagine it's similar to the cosmic rays, the galactic rays, ultraviolet radiation, entering into our solar system and entering into our planetary field, into our electromagnetic field right now, in response to galactic waves, in response to a rise in Gaia's consciousness and her purpose and her intention. So this is causing all these changes. So these electric shocks, these aurora borealis type phenomenon, many people are seeing these rings around the moon and the sun. Many people are seeing increased galactic presence, or experiencing this galactic presence as we open up our channels to extraterrestrial, even extragalactic intelligences. So, yeah, it's fascinating. So, the sixth sun was, the Incas talk about the journey from the fifth sun to the sixth sun. The Hopis have it slightly differently. They talk about the journey from the fourth sun to the fifth sun, or maybe they use a different term. It really doesn't matter because our memories can actually go back. Our Akashic memories can go back far beyond 5 or 6 suns. Every time we go through a cycle of magnetic shift, which is tied into solar flares and novas, which is tied into galactic waves. It follows a 12,000-year cycle, approximately. And every time we go through one of these cycles, we experience these waves of cosmic electricity, which then creates shifts and changes within our subtle bodies, which then opens up doorways between the worlds, which allows us to break out of the matrix of the third dimensional world for us right now. So this cycle is about that. This next few years, as we go through this doorway, a planetary doorway, we'll be breaking out of third dimensional dualistic paradigms. And this is an extraordinary time. It's beyond our wildest dreams. Everything that we think we are is so deeply anchored in a third dimensional dualistic matrix without even knowing it, without even thinking twice about it. And we won't know how far we've fallen into this hole until we begin to climb out. And that's what's starting to happen now. Okay, so Lisa says, I'm told we will all know what it means to be the green layer of this planet, as well as an ocean or any part of Gaia. So we're simply stretching out, we're joining the personal self with the planetary self. And then wherever we put our attention, we experience that directly and inwardly. So we can become a tree, we can become a mountain, we can become an ocean, we can become the whole, the entire ecosystem of Gaia on all levels, not just the surface level, beneath the earth, above the earth, and also interdimensionally, because the earth has her subtle bodies just like we do. So yes, Donov, Mikhail Ivanov, who was a disciple of, well, Peter Donov was a disciple of Mikhail Ivanov, or vice versa. I never met either of them. And then Autonomous, are you familiar with the work of Santos Bonassi? No, tell me more. And then Francesca, for the Aztec Toltec information, check out the work of Sergio Magana Ochoa-Chayote. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it properly. I need to write down some of these. Oh, Chayotl, okay. And then Santos Bonassi. Yeah, and Nikola Tesla was a master of frequency. He understood a lot of things that he didn't talk about publicly. Much of it is there in his journals, some of which I've read. It's fascinating. He was of extraterrestrial origins. He couldn't reveal this publicly. Many of his inventions are actually brand copies of what our ET brothers and sisters have been trying to tell us for a long time. So we are moving out of our dependency on external technologies, and specifically non-renewable technologies. So these new technologies that are coming in are based on higher understandings of energy, frequency, and vibration. So many of these instruments are not just for powering our systems like lighting and heating, but also for healing. I'll give you an example. I think it was about 1999 or 2000 when I met this inventor in Florida. He was of German origins, and he had invented this system. It was like a box, portable, You could put it in your car and it would drive your car. You could put it in your home, it would light up your home. It was very simple. Anybody could have access to this. It wasn't expensive. But what he discovered as he was working on this prototype is that he had prostate cancer. And he discovered that his prostate cancer disappeared over a period of a month or so. And then he thought, that's interesting. He called a few of his other friends who had illnesses of various kinds, and all of them also experienced healing. Unfortunately, he disappeared. I didn't hear from him after that, despite repeated attempts. And like many other inventors, I just sadly assumed that he was somehow made to disappear, whatever that means. But the time is back. The time is here now when these technologies are re-emerging, and nobody can stop this because it's in the collective now. Quantum generators. Okay, so Sheena is clarifying Ivanov was a disciple of Peter Donov. Okay, thanks. Lisa is asking, can you speak about the Lotus-born masters? I don't know. I don't know so much. I'm assuming this is something from the Tibetan tradition or the Shaivite tradition in North India, but I don't know so much about that. I can speak about the masters who worked with the rainbow body. And this was the science. They learned how to do this. It was working with very refined higher vibrational energies. It was also working with a lineage that held these energies so they could support those who wish to take the rainbow body. I'll just mention this. I've been writing a book. It's been 7 or 8 years in the making. It's the life of Isa, as Jesus was known in the East, and his studies and relationships with the masters in the Himalayas during the time that he was in India, both before and after the crucifixion in Palestine. And it's a fascinating story. There's a lot of historical records in the Buddhist and Hindu traditions, in the historical traditions of Kashmir. And many people I know, including myself, are now waking up to remembering what it was like to be there at that time in that circle. So basically, it was all about taking the rainbow body, and Isa was preparing and being prepared by the Nath yogis to take the rainbow body. And this is what he now continues to teach. So he's one of the guides, along with Babaji and others. And if this is something that speaks to you from a soul perspective, you can ask them. You can ask these guides. You can ask these lineages to support you. The Nath lineage. Isa's direct master was Chetan Nath. He's available. He's an immortal as well. Okay, so let's do some work with the sound current. So just make yourself comfortable. And I'm going to just call in these masters, the lineages that I mentioned. And you can likewise call in whatever lineages you're familiar with or have been working with. We're connecting with the Akashic libraries. We're connecting with the heart of Gaia. We're connecting with the aspects of our being that are beyond third dimensional form. Linked with the causal body or the soul body, the Antakarana. Bring your attention to that window above the top of your head. Open that window now and invite these masters, invite your own soul presence, invite the elemental kingdoms, invite the presence of Gaia as a beautiful, vast intelligence, multidimensional and divine. And all the lineages that have existed, the Tibetan and Egyptian and Yogic and Mayan and Incan and Celtic and so many others, the Aboriginal, the Yaqui, from all across this cycle of history, and then cycles of history before that. The Atlantean, Lemurian masters, intergalactic masters, whoever it is that you're specifically tuned into, or are specifically tuned into you, invite them in. And then listen within the center of your head for a corresponding sound frequency. It's a tone. It may be mild at first and starts building in volume, starts rising in frequency. Look for the highest pitch of this tone that you can access in this moment. If you don't hear anything physically, that's fine too. Just keep listening. And you're still receiving the subtle vibrations as you keep that window open, as you keep that connection with these higher vibrational beings. Watch your breath becoming very subtle. If you've done any practices with Kriya Yoga, it's similar to that. I call on Babaji. And Isa and Chetannath and Gorakhnath and Agasthyar. Padmasambhava. I call on one of the first original yogis, Gorakhnath Shiva. In much of the Indian and Tibetan traditions, the focus is on these male masters. There's also female masters. It's beyond gender. So we know Amritamayan and Anandamayi, Lady Nada, Magdalena, Miran, Isis. Whatever your tradition is, White Buffalo Woman, the Nustis. Connect with aspects of yourself that are not currently here on this planet. That could be from another star system, another galactic home. Connect with aspects of yourself beyond third and fourth dimension, residing in the fifth, sixth, seventh dimensions, whatever that means for you. All these names and these terms are simply like it's like touching the Nagwal, touching that space beyond. It's a different kingdom, a different loka, a different density. And as we tune in more and more to that, notice how that sound current becomes stronger, more defined. Notice how there's harmonics within a basal tone. And as we listen more and more deeply to that sound current, notice also how it permeates not just through the brain, but through the entire physical body. And out from the physical body, through the etheric and mental and emotional bodies, rippling out into the space around you, into your home environment, your work environment, the city, the nation, the continent, the planet that you happen to be on. All right, so it's something that you can carry with you into whatever it is you're doing. And notice in time that you can learn to identify these frequencies and identify the beings, whether they're from the upper world, the worlds of spirit, other dimensional frequencies, whether they're from the lower worlds, elemental beings, tree spirits, nature spirits, Gaia. There's specific ones that have been working with you or that you can choose to invite into your life for a period of time. So whatever other meditation practices you have been doing, whether you're working with the Inca practices or Vedic practices or Ilahi Nur, this can be a part of that too. If you're working with the breath, this becomes part of your breath. So if anyone wants to comment, please do so. At some point it would be nice to do this as a Zoom. I probably will start another series of webinars on Zoom. Could be next month or the month after, where we could go more deeply into these practices. I'm just trying to figure out how to make this happen with so many different time zones. We might have 2 different groups, one in Europe, one in North America. So you're all able to hear this sound current. Sometimes it's a bit subliminal at first. It's always there. It's simply a matter of paying attention. Yeah, frequency, girl, be still. I mean, isn't that something that Jesus was supposed to have said, or somebody else somewhere in the Bible? Be still and know that I am, or know that I am God. That's that divine presence. And this sound current is a doorway. Paula says, my ears are very sensitive. I'm afraid that when I practice listening to high frequencies, I will contact tinnitus. It's actually the opposite. There are people who have tinnitus who have learned to focus on the sound current, which allows the tinnitus to dissipate. Because tinnitus, I'm not sure what the organic aspects of this or the medical aspects of this are, but it's basically the sound frequency that's slightly out of balance. And the more you can focus on the higher tones of the sound current, you're healing these circuitries in the brain, the myelin sheath, um, the repairing whatever structures are within the cell, the mitochondria, the telomeres, and so on. I don't understand all of the details of how this works, but it's a deeply healing practice, and you can focus attention on anywhere in the body where there's imbalance and bring that sound current. So test it out for yourself. Don't push yourself, Paula. Just follow the edge, whatever feels good for you. Don't go over the edge. But gradually, I feel like you'll become more comfortable with this. Hatsi, getting goosebumps when I mentioned the white buffalo woman. Yeah, Lisa's echoing what Paula was saying. Anna, your soothing, healing voice puts me in a meditative state the minute you begin to talk. Thank you. It could be also that, I've been working with these sound currents and, learning to keep those channels open and allowing these higher vibrational frequencies to enter into the nervous system, into the chakras. This is also what the Incas teach, into the navis. And that frequency then starts to come through every aspect of your being, your presence, your voice, your communications, your efforts. So it's not like the personal self is trying to do something, it's the personality structure then becomes a vehicle, a reflection for something beyond. Yeah, Leela, no mind, no words, just love. So keep practicing. So this is a time when these practices are really required, and we have time for this, sitting at home if you're on lockdown, and to break through into the next vibrational frequency for Mother Earth. As we go through this shift, it's really important to keep these practices going so we can actually radiate out as soul presence beyond our, our individual body system, and start to affect the collective even without knowing that we are doing so. All right, so thank you for joining me, and join me on the Above and Beyond Duality for next week, Age of Pandora, and then after that I think we'll be back on the regular YouTube Above Duality. My hope is we can eventually get on a non-censored platform where we don't have to worry about these things. All right. So namaste and love. Oh, 18. Bonjour. Thank you all for being here.